It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of America, and live from the WACA studios, this is Good Night. Our first story tonight is a follow-up of sorts from a story we did a while back about Woodstock's 50th anniversary concert festival. When we reported the story, we talked about how the lineup was not only kind of boring and tame, but also didn't represent the counterculture or activism aspects of the original Woodstock. Well, clearly many other people felt that way because in addition to getting flamed on Twitter, the festival was officially canceled a few weeks ago after being forced to move locations multiple times, getting soft canceled, losing funding, and losing participants. It was moved from upstate New York to Maryland, and participants were asked to play for free at the new location. Then the ticket sales company pulled out and canceled the event. Then the event was brought back. The investors pulled out and it was canceled again. Now here we are. So to everyone who wanted to see Miley Cyrus and Imagine Dragons headline a Woodstock festival, I'm sorry, but it looks like that's not going to happen. There was, however, a Woodstock tribute this past weekend on the date of the original festival in Bethel, New York, featuring an exhibit by local arts center detailing the history of the event, veterans like Santana and John Fogerty of Creedence Clearwater Revival playing at night, and activism projects throughout the weekend. It went off and seemed to be a positive celebration of one of the most iconic moments in American music history. In airing dirty laundry news, a Kenyan governor had some choice words for a friend of his during a friend's funeral, and has since gone viral and sparked a bit of controversy in Kenya and among Kenyan politicians. During his speech at his co-worker's funeral, Mike Sonko outlined a very specific case of infidelity and the resulting child that came from it. While most people agreed that it was maybe kind of not the time for such a grievance, Sonko doubled down, setting up a hotline for women who had affairs resulting in children out of wedlock with politicians. According to CNN, there is a large population of single mothers in Kenya, and many women were grateful for the governor's efforts. Many took him up on the hotline, and there are plans to expose the politicians implicated on the hotline tips. And it's good that these men are being held accountable for their actions, especially as CNN mentions that government officials are some of the highest paid employees in the country. But like at his funeral? I mean, come on, man. Like his widow was there, and you guys are buds. Maybe give it a few weeks before shaming your friend for his infidelity. In ridiculous news this week, there's a wedding crasher on the loose, and I'm not talking about the 2005 film of the same name. Texas police are on the lookout for a serial wedding crasher who reportedly shows up to the reception, poses as a guest, and then steals all the wedding gifts. KENS 5 in Texas reports that the incident has happened 4 times in 2 separate venues in a single county. Now, there is such a thing for a bride and a groom and anyone who bought gifts to have it stolen. But it's also such a shame for crashers all over the world. She's giving crashers a bad name. I crash stuff all the time and never steal anything. Hell, I even got a picture of me at an event and keep it up. I went to a bar mitzvah last week and at the wedding a month ago. I'll crash anything, you name it, and I'm there. The only thing I'm stealing is the free food and maybe a bit of the open bar. That's going to do it for the news this week. Stay tuned for some bits from our crew celebrating World Photography Day. And don't go anywhere because we have what's trending on Twitter to discuss. Keep it locked right here to Good Night.
They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So here on World Photography Day, I'm going to use a few words to tell you some cool facts and amazing history about photography. So you've probably seen this grouping of shots before, maybe in an animation. It was taken by Edward Muybridge in 1878. So Muybridge got the shot by setting up 24 cameras 27 inches apart from one another and having a horse run through at 36 miles per hour. It was done to put the biggest debate of the time to rest. Do horses' hooves fully leave the ground when they're galloping? Turns out they do. But the ramifications of this on the photography world were immense. So much so that the standard Muybridge used 140 years ago is still the standard in Hollywood films today. The 24 individual cameras took 24 individual frames of the horse running in a single second. Now this is equivalent to film's usage of frames per second to describe how many times the camera shutters or takes a single picture in a second. This is the standard for most Hollywood films. But what took Muybridge 24 separate cameras spread out over 51.75 feet, in addition to hours in the development room after the shot, I can do right now. Whoa. In fact, the sports games you watch are captured in 60 frames per second, which is why they look so much more fluid than your average Hollywood movie. So, if Muybridge wanted to capture this sweet dunk back in 1878, he would need 36 more cameras evenly spread out over the same distance. In the original shoot, he spaced them 27 inches apart, but for this, he'd have to space them around 10 inches apart, and they'd span the entire length of the court. Now that's a pretty tall ask, and it's going to get kind of cramped when you're working with big boy cameras like they were back in 1878. Photography is an amazing thing. It can capture the social climate of an era. It can show us how beautiful our world is. Or it can help me show off how cute my cat is. But whatever you use it for, I hope you enjoy and celebrate World Photography Day.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Good Night. We're back on Good Night. We're talking about what's trending on Twitter. Joining us once again, the famous actor, Nick Featherston. Nick, how are you?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Going off to the Theater Institute in just a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. Just a couple weeks.
Should be interesting. Let's go back to Connor in the studio and see what's trending on Twitter tonight. And our first topic trending on Twitter, Seinfeld. Friends or Seinfeld? What is the greatest sitcom of all time?
Well, I don't think either of them, in my personal opinion, are the greatest sitcoms of all time, but Seinfeld blows Friends out of the water.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just think it's actually, like, funny. Like, I don't know. It might just be because, like, I don't necessarily relate enough to Friends. Like, I'm not a person who lives in New York City in an apartment that I can not afford, and I have this group of weird, wacky friends. And, like, I'm not going to sit here and say Friends isn't a good show, but come on, everyone. Friends is the most overrated show in the history of television. Like, it's not a bad show, but it's not, like, the God-level writing that everyone says it is.
It was funny.
It was funny, but there are people who get, like, Netflix just for Friends and then watch it 6 times over the span of a year. Like, the whole show.
Courtney Cox, Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston.
I don't know. I might debate you on that.
But I don't know. I think Seinfeld's just funnier. And like everything.
Seinfeld's the perfect show because it's about nothing.
Well, yeah, exactly. And like all the sitcom tropes of these days, Seinfeld did it first.
You said you don't think it's the greatest sitcom of all time. What is?
I think Parks and Rec
Parks.
is really funny. And then I don't know if it really counts as a sitcom, but I've been big into the show Community lately. That's also a really good show.
I haven't seen it.
That one's kind of weird, though. It kind of changes genres a lot.
Showing my age, but All in the Family is probably the greatest sitcom of all time. But.
I've seen episodes of that. That's kind of funny.
But going back to Seinfeld, I mean, it still stands up today. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
It was from the mid '80s, and it still stands up today. You watch it today, even though I've seen it every episode, probably 10 times. I'll still stop and watch it.
Oh, yeah. It's timeless.
Yeah, it is a timeless, but it's so much better than Friends. Anybody who says that it's not is crazy.
Yeah.
All right, Connor, back in the studio. We're trending on Twitter. Our next topic is Twitter needs more what?
Common sense, respect,
Less hate?
chill.
I don't know. I always appreciate Twitter for news.
Yeah.
It's a good thing when you're at work, when you're grabbing a sandwich, you can just go to Twitter and you can catch more news. But I don't know.
It's very sensationalized news.
Sometimes, even though we've dedicated a full segment to here every week on Good Night, sometimes Twitter's just a little bit too dark for me. I mean, I don't know. I think it needs more animal stories. I always like the animal pieces on.
Oh, totally.
But I mean, is that what Twitter wants it to be?
I don't know. I mean, it started out like kind of a faster version of Facebook. Like, hey, what are you doing right now? And it was supposed to be like short, quick fire ways of like letting people know what you're up to. And now it's like,
Well, Twitter was the original
Major-
place you posted your food and what you were having for lunch, like
Yeah.
anybody ever really cared.
Yeah.
No offense, I don't really care what anybody's really having for lunch. Like,
yeah, but now it's like major news stories break on Twitter.
yeah.
And
Well, I
it's-
mean, look, the leader of the free world communicates on Twitter all
Yeah.
the time. Do we need more of that, or do we need less of that? I think we need less.
It's a case-by-case basis, I think, but I think overall maybe less.
You know, for like instance this week, you know, on Twitter, you know, the Antifa protest in Portland. Twitter was a good place to go see that, but then some of the stuff that I saw posted by some of the new organizations, I didn't think it was appropriate for Twitter though either, as well too.
No, I mean, there's only so much that you can say on Twitter, so it's like you gotta like push it in a weird way because there's a character limit. So you either gotta just do like a grabbing, over sensationalized statement, or leave out important details.
I mean, we've talked so much on this program the last couple of weeks about free speech and the First Amendment, in which I 110% support. But when you only have 2 minutes to frame an argument on Twitter, sometimes I don't feel like you get the real argument because it's only, you know, if you're doing like live shots of something, you know, you're not getting what happened before, you're not getting what happened after. So sometimes I think Twitter needs a little bit more, I don't want to say editorial, but
Grace.
content.
Content?
Yeah, proper content. Connor, what's next on our list of what's trending on Twitter this week? Barstool. Did you see this controversy? Dave Portnoy said, you know, leader of Barstool, said that he was going to fire anybody who on his staff that wanted to unionize. And then AOC came after him and said, you know, that he was breaking the law. What's your thoughts on all that?
Doesn't he realize that like what he said is like the exact reason that unions exist? Like workers' rights. Like you can't stop someone from joining a union if you've already hired them. Like if they're in a union and you don't want to
Yeah, but
hire
you know,
them,
you,
it's like-
you can stop it, but you might be held accountable for it though as well.
It's not. I don't think it's a very fair thing to do. Like, why does he want them not union?
Well, because any employer, I mean, you added expense, added accountability. You know, when the employer loses its ability to manage their business the way that they want to, lose it. I mean, unions have done a lot of good work in this country. They've, certainly cleaned up a lot of the workplaces. But some would say that unions have gone a little bit too far in today's world too, as well.
I mean, I feel like Barstool is such a big organization that it's like you're gonna get so many people working for you that you can't deny everyone union status.
But I think a company like Barstool, I mean, what do they max have? 250, 300 people working for them?
That's
Max.
a little more than that.
You think? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty lean and mean. They're just,
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm in college and I see Barstool all over the place, and I'm like, yeah, this place is huge.
What do you think of Barstool?
It's not really a me thing. Like, it is more sports and just like the more rambunctious kinds of college media. I have nothing like personally against it. It's just not one. It's not really my thing.
No?
No.
Not even from the sports aspect?
I mean, from the sports aspect, like I think there's a couple interesting things on there. But if I'm really interested in sports news, I kind of just like ESPN or other internet sources.
A guy we've talked a lot about on this program the last couple of weeks, Kirk Minahan, formerly of WEEI, went to Barstool, and he's already kind of in some hot water with Barstool. So it should be interesting this week to see if he weathers that storm. He might be out at Barstool, but it might be too early to tell. But you never know.
Interested to see what happens there.
But Barstool got sold. Portnoy originally started Barstool in the Boston area, and he moved to New York. And now he's just kind of the figurehead owner. He sold it. He made quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
But he sold it. But now it's a corporation, and now stockholders want results. So be interesting to see what happens.
That's the way it goes.
Connor back in the studio. What's next? Trending on Twitter this week. Not great film sequels. We could be here all night with that one.
Yeah. Right off the bat, I'm going to say my least favorite movie of all time, which is Star Wars: Attack of the Clones.
You're a huge Star Wars fan.
I'm
What
a
do you mean?
huge Star Wars fan. And as a whole, it's part of like Star Wars, so I love it. But on its own, like what even is that movie? It's the second longest Star Wars movie, and almost nothing happens in it.
Okay.
Other than like Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman like broken love acting. Along the same lines, there's Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin was a bad sequel.
Yeah, like you start off with the original Tim Burton Batman, and then you get down to that with the rubber bat nipples, bat credit card, and George Clooney. He doesn't even do a voice. He doesn't even do a voice for Batman. He just walks around like, "Hey, I'm Batman."
Home Alone 2 was a bad sequel.
Yeah, you think so?
Rocky 5 and 6 were bad sequels.
Yeah.
Uh,
I haven't seen Rocky 6. I've seen Rocky 5.
What else were bad sequels? Trying to think of.
A lot of the Star Treks.
A couple of the Star Treks, yeah.
Grease 2.
Grease 2, yep.
The only good thing about that movie is Michelle Pfeiffer, really. Like, she's like the only one trying.
I mean, some consider Godfather to be one of the greatest movies of all time, but Godfather 2 was not half as good as The Godfather. So,
I've only seen the first one.
and then you mentioned tonight, Rocky Horror Picture Show had a sequel. I
Yeah,
wasn't even aware of that.
I found that out this weekend. It's called like Shock Treatments or something. It did not do so well in the theater. Like most of the original cast is back, but they're all playing like different characters. The only characters that like carry over are Brad and Janet, but they're played by different actors.
You ever done a play with it?
No,
I mean, you've starred in Rocky Horror Picture Show a couple times, so.
Yeah, my school did a shadow cast of it a couple years ago. But apparently, like they do shadow casts of that one too. It's just not as well done. Because I guess if you're gonna do something from like that franchise, why wouldn't you do the one that people know about and like? But I don't know. Shock Treatments. Go check it out.
I don't know. What movie doesn't have a sequel that you would like to see a sequel to, you think?
Oh, that's a big question. What? I don't know. What about you?
One of the greatest movies I thought was like The Untouchables
Yeah.
with Kevin Costner. Like maybe see a sequel to something like that.
What movie that doesn't have a sequel that I'd want a sequel to? I don't know, because like a
Like
lot
a
of
good sequel from one of the Star Wars movies. This one coming up in December better be good.
Oh my God, I really hope
It better be good, or I think it damages the franchise. I think.
Oh, a lot of people would say it's already dead, which I disagree with.
Not dead. I don't think it's dead.
I've liked all the last ones that have come out, but I know a lot of people, especially with like The Last Jedi, were not happy. Like so not happy that they didn't go see in Solo.
I don't know. You know what never had a good sequel was also the Transformers movies. The first Transformer movie was pretty decent.
The Bumblebee movie that just came out was pretty
They
good.
weren't bad. Yeah,
But I guess that wasn't really much of a sequel, more of like a spin-off.
Those weren't bad. Those weren't
But
bad.
yeah, the Transformers movies were never great. I like the first one enough.
Never great. All right, Connor, what's trending also on Twitter this week? Greenland. You saw that President Trump has kicked around the idea of buying Greenland. What's your thoughts?
Why?
Hey, why not?
But why so?
Why is Greenland called Greenland when it's mostly covered in snow? So.
I remember learning at school that it was like, I think to like trick some people, because then Iceland was very green and Greenland was covered in ice. I don't know.
How much would Greenland cost to buy? Of course, you know,
I mean, it's a country.
yeah.
A lot.
They've already let it be known that it's not for sale, but you know, Trump, when he gets something stuck in his mind, he's probably going to pursue it.
I feel like more money than
Would it become the 51st state?
I think it's too big to be a state. I feel like it would become something more along the lines of like Puerto Rico or something.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a
Yeah.
very good point. But why? With failing infrastructure in this country that we have bridges that are ready to fall apart. I mean,
Yeah.
has anybody driven down Route 9 in Massachusetts or the Turnpike? It's a mess. Like, can we fix what we have
Right,
here in
like,
our country before
we
we go and
don't-
buy something else?
We don't have the money to really spend on a new country right now.
Well, I find it interesting that the guy who wants to build the wall
Wants to buy a
wants to buy another country.
foreign country.
Why don't we just buy Mexico? Make it easier. You know? I don't know. I find it.
I don't get it. Like it seems like he's like, oh man, I need a plan for this month. Greenland looks cool. This
But
time.
see, you haven't figured out that's Trump's mantra.
Yeah.
He makes you focus on this, so you're not focusing on that. So he'll throw out something as quirky as, hey, we should buy Greenland. So you don't focus on the economy. So you don't focus on unemployment. You don't focus on his policies.
Yeah.
He controls the news. Anybody. I had the opportunity to go up to New Hampshire last week, and I talked to a lot of people from the national news. His mantra about fake news has affected the news business because even though the news business will tell you that they still control the news, he does. I wouldn't say control, but he directs the news a lot now too. Yeah, and he plays to it. So this whole Greenland thing, it's a diversion. So you won't pay attention.
I don't
to
know if
something
it's
else.
100% a diversion, but it's definitely.
He doesn't have the ability to buy a country.
Well, no, but
You think the Congress is going to say, "Oh yeah"?
no,
let's
no.
appropriate
I'm
money
not. I'm not saying it's gonna.
Appropriate
I'm
money.
not saying it's gonna happen, but I'm not also gonna sit here and say that he doesn't believe what he's saying in the sense that he wants it. Donald Trump is a man that, until he was president, was never denied anything in his entire life. If he looks at a country and says, "I want that," he's gonna get it. Or he's not gonna get it. He's gonna try to get it.
He's going to try to get it.
Yeah, he's not gonna get Greenland.
Let's hope not. All right, that's going to wrap for this week and what's trending on Twitter. Nick, thanks for joining us here. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right here on Good Night. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us on Good Night, and thanks to our trending panel, Nick Featherston, for joining us. We'll be back next week at 9 p.m. with Lucy's Burdge, This Week in Music History, and the latest in news and pop culture, in an interview with Mike Wassenaar of the Alliance for Community Media. Catch all that and more next week right here on Good Night.